Welcome to the Justice Journal podcast. I'm Sacramento County District Attorney Anne Marie Schubert. I hope you enjoy this podcast series where we discuss important public safety issues and provide insight into who we are as an office and what we do both in the courtroom and in the community to provide the highest level of public safety through prosecution, prevention, and innovation.
In our last episode, we talked about different ways our kids are being targeted by online sexual predators and some ways to protect them. In this episode, we'll continue that conversation about how to protect our kids and what parents can do. What about parental controls that parents can do so their kids can't get certain messages, or what can they do on the back end that kind of the safety net for what their kids do or don't do?
I think one low-hanging fruit is to work with your provider, whether that's your phone provider or your internet provider. That's a good starting point. One of the challenges are kids are extremely resourceful with technology, and they can often find ways around that. But I think that's a great start. It's hard to keep up with everything, the vaults, the different apps, but that is, we do have the attention of these big providers, these billion-dollar corporations. So they are starting to really have monitoring systems that are user friendly, and that are simply you can sign up for.
So. And that actually is a point of something in terms of you talk about you trying to find new ways and trying to get better at this. That's probably the next stage of where I think someone like the schools and law enforcement can be doing is start working closer with providers in terms of having them come in and educating parents and educating students and taking more responsibility in terms of how to keep this safe, because it's in the provider's best interest too to make sure that these things are being operated properly.
And one of the other things, too, what Scott was saying, there's a bunch of apps out there that that you can put on your child's phone. And we don't recommend them for you to put them on your, an adult's phone, like your significant other. We make jokes about that sometimes, but there are a bunch of apps out there that some that cost money, some that don't cost money, but parents sometimes complain, it costs money for a monthly fee, but it's like, I think it's worth the $10 a month to be able to know everything that your child is doing. And it also will allow you to turn the Wi-Fi off at a certain time, turn it back on, see their keystrokes, see who they're texting, what pictures they're sending out. And it'll also provide you a list of keywords. So for example, if you put in a bunch of words that would be sexually explicit, it'll send you an alert that your child just sent a text message to somebody that had contained a word that was sexually explicit.
So it'll track their online activity,
yes,
plus their text messages,
yes,
and things.
And I know it sounds kind of scary, but it's if you, for the safety of your kids, you definitely need to do something like that.
And even your child, even knowing that you have that on their phone, will probably help to have them avoid doing some
It can definitely deter it.
What should a parent do if their child says that, if the child does tell the parent that they're a victim of sextortion or cyberbullying or anything else? What should they be doing in terms of evidence, or can they?
Well, one of the first things to start off with is that when you do give your child these devices and you do start communicating to them, you need to also remember that if they do come to you because they're having a situation, that you make it so that when they have another situation, unfortunately, if it does happen, that you don't make it so that they don't want to come back to you again. You need to be able to, don't punish them to a point where, like, if something happens again, because unfortunately it might, you don't want them to not come to you. Right. And that's one of the reasons with the sextortion, like Scott was talking about, some of the kids will say to us, I just sent all the photos because I thought they would go away. These little 9, 10, 11, 12-year-olds don't understand that they're not going to go away. The suspect is going to continue to extort you for photos. So they didn't tell their parents. So they got in too deep. So you have to be able to open that communication for your kids.
Should they take a snapshot, though, if they're getting threatening or messages that are extorting them in some way, or is that something that they can do? I'm just thinking in terms of when if they do report it to law enforcement, what should they be keeping and providing to them?
So screenshots are good as kind of a second thing, but backup. But primarily, we'd like to have their device so that we can do a data extraction. And one of the things I tell parents is that if you screen capture, for example, Instagram, all these messages they're getting, that's fine. But we would like to go through their cell phone, because a lot of times we will find that the kids are doing other things through other apps on their phone, unbeknownst to the parents, and they're communicating with them. So we just like to have the whole phone so we can get the whole picture and see what's going on. So unfortunately, we would have to take the phone. Because they are the victim, we'll likely get them the phone, do a data dump as soon as possible and get the phone back to them. One of the things that parents do is if they do find images of their child who took sexually explicit photos, they'll find it and they'll say to their husband, "Hey, I found this photo," and they'll text it to their significant other saying, "Look." And so we have to remind parents, when you find evidence of that nature, don't email it to your other people to say, "Hey, look what I found," because when you're doing that, you're distributing child pornography. So if you find it, we always tell parents, do not email that.
Just keep it on the device.
Keep it on the device. Don't put it on your device because now your device has it. So we tell parents that child pornography is like contraband. It's just like having illegal firearms or illegal drugs. That's exactly what it is. We don't want to distribute it.
Also, say urgency too for time. 2-3 hours can make all the difference from something going viral. At least from the school standpoint, working with our school resource officers, we've often been able to intervene and get things removed before they do go viral.
How do you do that? Do you contact the app?
Every case at times, and as Leland said, sometimes they will take weeks to get back to you.
So how do you get it shut down?
We'll work with the offenders. We'll work with the parents. Kind of old school investigation and find out. But an hour or two, things can go viral. So we always ask our parents and students, "Hey, time is your enemy when it comes to this."
Yeah, a lot of these providers, because of the laws out there, they are supposed to take down anything that's child pornography right away. So if you were to go to Instagram and have a picture of a minor and you were to report it, they should take it down pretty quickly. They should. Because if they don't, technically they can be fined $150,000 in each time thereafter. But the providers are scanning their servers for images of child pornography. So they're definitely trying to get those off.
But you have to ask yourself as a deterrent, $150,000, what is that to Google?
Yes, exactly.
In terms of it being a true deterrent, in terms of them making this a priority, that it should never take 2 weeks to get back to a school, to an administrator on this type of issue.
Does law enforcement have some kind of a hotline into some of these apps, like a quick direct? Because I could see it would take a while because Facebook is such a big, and Facebook's probably not even the most popular app for kids, but is there a direct line for law enforcement to report something right away to get it off, or they're the same as everybody else calling to report something? So unfortunately with the providers, it is a challenge for us, particularly with having any kind of communication with them. When we want to get search warrant results back, it's been very challenging. Pretty much it's exigent circumstances where you can, get a direct phone call to them. Other than that, unfortunately, there's not. That's why we really do need to, at some point, I think maybe by the time we all retire from what we're doing, that'll occur, but I don't think.
Let's hope. And we're talking about child pornography. That's a little more black and white. But when we're talking about cyberbullying, that's where it can take weeks because that can be a lot of perception.
Yes.
And you
need history on that too. It's not just one post necessarily.
And if it's really hard working with some of these businesses when they don't know what is cyberbullying, what is someone being mean, if it's a joke. So it does put them in a tougher situation than if we're talking child pornography.
Right.
That's cut and dry.
And what makes that so difficult, what Scott's talking about, is just the fact of the matter, the culture of gaming and of internet. Like these kids, they do these gaming things and they talk trash.
Yes.
So they talk about each other and make fun of each other while they're doing their little shooting and things like this. And in most cases, it's probably all in good fun and they're friends. But sometimes it can go in a very negative cyberbullying aspect of it, to where it's become some of the most horrific cyberbullying that can lead to horrible consequences. And it's probably hard sometimes to know whether it's that fun-loving trash talk or if it's going to turn into being the type of cyberbullying that someone's going to do something really drastic or permanent because they can't deal with what's going on.
Yeah. Leland and Scott, do you find that students are just not informed about these things, or do you find that they're purposely trying to circumvent some of the cautionary provisions that are put in place? I'm just curious as to, sometimes I think they might know about it, but they're in denial of some level, so they try to find ways to get around parent supervision, or do you think they just don't really understand?
Well, I can't speak for everyone else, but I thought I was invincible when I was younger. And I certainly don't think about consequences. I mean, it wasn't until I became an adult that I started thinking about consequences. So I think it's a little bit of both.
Right. I think the response I've seen for a lot of students is they're not surprised that any of these things go on. But the idea that it can happen to you, maybe that light starts to go off. But I think the thing that occurs to me more than anything else is the parents aren't equipped to deal with what their kids are doing, because the students are so technologically savvy. They've grown up in this age of information. They understand the phones and the computers and the apps in a way that many parents don't. It's not even about an educational level. It's just some parents just aren't good at technologies. They just don't even know how to check. They don't even know what these apps do. They're really at a huge disadvantage. And forget about if you start talking about, parents there's language barriers and things like that contribute to. So these children really, and they are children, are in the driver's seat in terms of how they're using some of this technology. And with that comes a lot of responsibility, but they always seem to think that not me, it won't happen to me. That's something that's on TV. Oh, my boyfriend, Billy, he really loves me. We're special. I can give him a picture because we're going to be together forever. They really believe these things. And, they're coming out at the ninth grades, and you think it to yourself as, you're in ninth grade. So I think they're not surprised about what's going on, but I think sometimes we're just trying to help them be realistic about the true dangers of it.
I agree. I think it's a lot of the not me syndrome.
Absolutely. And I think, and that's the thing, is it's all races, it's all genders, it's social economic backgrounds, it's happening. People we know, other law enforcement officers, their children become victims. This is what we do. Family, it definitely is something that's happening all over, all the time.
And I think it's, as you mentioned before, it's hard because being online is just part of our society now. So I think for kids to be fully protected, they have to basically be offline. And that's just not really feasible or practical these days, because so much of what we do now is online, whether you're an adult or even a child.
Especially for education, in terms of, we talk about how they do research, like how one of the things we kind of joke about in iSMART is how when we used to do a research assignment, you go to the library, you get an encyclopedia, you go to the card catalog. That's not how they do research now. They do all the research is done via technology, via internet, things like that. So it's how they basically they do school, which is your job, which is again why they're so proficient at it, and you can't really take that away. Which is why the parents have to really take an active role. But the kids themselves, at the end of the day, that's what we tell them in iSMART. This is your future. We're talking about, you have to protect yourself. You have to be smart about this, because in the end, no one can protect you more than you. And we really try to get that in them and have them take ownership of being smart about how they use it.
These challenges can seem overwhelming and like you'll never really catch up. So what keeps you all motivated and hopeful that kids are being protected and the dangers will someday be much less than what we're seeing today?
I think the fact of the matter is that this problem isn't going anywhere. And it's just like everything else that we have to do in our society, is that we have to adapt and evolve with the way our society adapts and evolved. And this has to be a priority for the schools, for law enforcement, for parents, and for kids to protect themselves, because the technology is just going to get more and more sophisticated. And who knows? 20 years from now, we may have 6-year-olds walking around with watches that do smartphone things and things like that. That's where we're going. So I think what keeps me motivating, what keeps us motivating, is the same mission that we always have, in terms of that we're going to continue to do whatever it takes to kind of keep our children and our community safe. And it's daunting and it can be overwhelming, but you still keep moving forward, because the bad guys and the people that will use technology for evil things, they're not going away either.
No, they're going to keep on going. And like we were talking earlier, the dark web is another thing that, I know as an investigator, I've taken lots of classes on the dark web, and I still sometimes don't know how to get on there. But we've had cases where 9-year-olds have gotten on there. So
how are the kids getting on the dark web?
That's what, Leland was saying. It's
brilliant.
They're so much smarter than we were, and so they're learning about this stuff. So we really have to we really need to just, as parents, I think the key is to educate them. We just need to continually educate them age appropriately. And so every year, if we start younger, we just keep on building and adding more and more material. But like we were saying earlier, they need to be educated a little bit more younger. I mean, 9-year-olds are having conversations that I've seen in text message threads with adults that blow my mind away, because I didn't know that they know how to say some of the things that they are saying or take pictures that they're taking. I had no idea that kids that young are doing it. And I think kids are becoming more sexual, obviously, at a younger age as a result of the internet. So I think it's education and talking to your kids, being open.
And for me, I've seen the devastation it can cause, not just the student, but the student's brother, the family. We've seen it. So every time we have a case like that, it motivates our district. We just want to exhaust all resources and work with our partners. And that's why we've worked so closely with the district attorney's office the last 3 years. But that's really what motivates us.
And I guess what's the alternative, really?
Yeah.
You gotta keep fighting the.
If you can educate and just get one child at a presentation, that's great.
Right.
That's the way. That's what we want. Mm-hmm. So we also work with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. So if parents want resources, that's a great place to go. It's NetSmarts. I don't know if any of you have heard of that, but NetSmarts
yes.
has age-appropriate material for parents, for children, for law enforcement, for teachers. And it's all age-appropriate. They've got PowerPoints and they've got material and brochures.
They have videos online. I know. I've seen a lot of those.
Yes, it's great. And so also, too, if parents, like you were asking earlier about if parents do come across what they think is a crime, they can also go to the National Center and report that cyber tip, which will get triaged to the appropriate law enforcement agency. So we will get it. Our task force will get it. So, for example, Folsom or Rancho Cordova parent reports something to there, it'll come to us at the Sheriff's
So
Department.
it goes to the national level, but then it ends up coming back down to those jurisdictions.
Yes, it's all deconfliction. So that way, so if you report it to there, it's not like it's going to be an issue. It'll all come back to us because we are the hub here in Sacramento for the.
Leland, for schools or parents or groups that would like an iSMART program, how can they request that presentation?
To request an iSMART presentation, all you'd have to do is go to the district attorney's website at sacda.org, and you go to our Community and Government Relations Division. There's a page where it talks about Speakers Bureau and the different programs, and you can find the iSMART program there and request it. And understand the iSMART program, it's free. And we will do it for any school. We'll also do it for organizations. We'll do it for clubs. We'll do it for almost pretty much any group that requests us. And it's a situation where we work with our partners. We have several different attorneys in the office that volunteer to do the iSMART. When we actually go out and do it at the Folsom Cordova school system for Scott's 10th graders, this year we had almost 25 other attorneys from within the DA's office participating in doing different programs. I'm doing the iSMART program for different schools. So it's a group effort, and we'll come to almost anywhere that you request. And all you got to do is go to the website and request, and then we'll talk about making sure that we have the logistics to make it happen, and we'll be there.
What about the issue of kids getting around age-restricted apps by creating an email account?
And they have multiple email accounts. That's why I tell parents go through their phones, because they have multiple email accounts. That's why you want the evidence. You want the whole phone, because you will find all those accounts.
Multiple email accounts, and they'll also have multiple profiles in the app, multiple Facebooks, multiple Instagrams, multiple Snapchats. So they'll tell their parents, oh, that's my Snapchat, and the parent will be friends with them, and they think that's all they're doing on Snapchat. Then they have a secret Snapchat for them, for all their friends, where they're doing things they don't want their parents to see. And it's very common, because all you have to do is come up and make a fake email account, and then you can almost like have a fake identity where they feel free to do what they want, which is why you need the phone, where you can get access to everything, which you don't really know.
What's the point then of having those restrictions if all you have to do is set up a fake Gmail account where Gmail doesn't have any of those kinds of, you have to prove that you're a certain age. What's the point then of these apps having that if they can just get around it by setting up all these different emails?
Yeah, that's why we have to have larger conversations with these. And matter of fact, one of our detectives, Ryan Smith, was at National Center last week having conversations with Google and Facebook and all of them to talk to them about these types of issues.
Verifying ages.
And that's what I said in terms of like looking towards the future, in terms of what we can do. I think that the Googles, the Facebooks, the Apples, all these technology providers, these cell phones, I think that the onus should be on them to take a more proactive approach in terms of making sure that their devices and that their platforms are being used safe. I think they need more of a responsibility put on them that they're doing just as much as we are. And I think that, not saying that they aren't, but I think that there's always more that can be done because they have a lot more control of how these apps and platforms are used than obviously we do. And we probably should be talking more about how we can work together.
Well, I think this is going to be an issue that we'll be talking about for quite some time. But thank you for today's discussion. I think it's a good start. And hopefully parents will listen to this, even students, and reach out and either request an iSMART program or do their own research to find out how to be smarter about being online. Even with parents, their behaviors are often mimicked by their kids.
If just at minimum, and I know that Scott and Christie will agree, at least just have a conversation.
Yes. Well, I think we'll end there. Thank you guys very much again. Join us for our next episode where we'll highlight another community partner, Mervyn Brookins and the Brother to Brother program.
Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. You can find all of the Justice Journal podcasts on our website at sacda.org, iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube.